one speaker, and Linda Petz, who's going to be doing this fantastic advocate session.
Hi, everybody. Just to introduce Becky, she is absolutely fabulous. I wonder if I'm actually on screen because I can only see Catherine at the moment. Is that okay?
I can see you. Yeah, I can see
you.
you.
We can see you fine. We can see you fine.
Thank you, Robert. I have had the most wonderful couple of weeks working with Becky on her how to manage managers. Her experiences have been really representative of the highs and lows of being in employment and being dyslexic. It's very much from the basis of being dyslexic. And we're not talking about all the other things that we might have as well, the ADAD or ADD or any of the other mixes. It's very much from the basis of dyslexia, but it does acknowledge that all of us often have quite a complex profile. I feel that Becky really demonstrates resilience and creativity, and I hope that you really enjoy this session, because I think that there's a lot to gain from it. Might be a little bit tricky in places because the technology is not quite with us, but please bear with us because I think this is really worthwhile. So I'm handing you over to Becky.
Oh, well, thank you very much for a very, very lovely introduction, Linda and Catherine. I've got to say, a bit like Linda and Catherine both said, I have had a blast these last couple of weeks. It's been brilliant. It's like we're in sync. I've come off, we've had a few talks, and one we were only supposed to last an hour, weren't it? In fact, both of them were only supposed to last an hour. I think one was nearly 2 hours, the other one was nearly 2 hours. And it was just the way we were talking and connecting. And I think we'll all get so much, hopefully, out of this presentation. If you get a glimmer of what me, Catherine and Linda's had, then I feel we'll be having a good talk. So, and I'd just like to, before I start, thank Catherine and Linda for all their help and support, and you'll see that throughout the slides, because I've added stuff in from what they've said from our discussions. So hopefully, sit back, enjoy, feel free to chuck in any questions you've got. What I will say to you is it doesn't distract me at all. So if you've got any questions, you can put them in the chat, but you can just shout them out. You can raise your hand. I'm constantly thinking about multiple things, so anything you have to say won't distract me at all, so feel free to chip in as and when. Catherine's going to share the slides, because I'll be honest, me and technology are not friends, so I will say you'll leave me to keep saying to Catherine, next slide please. So on that, I can't see it at the moment. It says Catherine has started the screen share.
Yeah, I'm just trying to.
Oh, that's all right. I was just checking that I wasn't the only one who couldn't see it, so no, that's fine. It's probably just going to take a minute. So
sorry about this.
Don't worry, I can carry on. I can pretty much memorize the slides, so I'll start talking and I can come back to them. Okay. But basically, my presentation today is on basically my journey managing your manager, but also from early education all the way to present day, and also the ups, like Linda says, the ups, the downs, and everything in between. Oh, and there it is. I clearly memorized it because I'm not looking at it, so that was good. So yeah, next slide please. Yeah, it's not on full screen, but I can see. I don't know if that's a problem for everybody or not. It's not on shared. I don't know if that means anything, but don't bother me. But does it bother anybody else? Can the people see it, or do they want it on full screen?
I can see it fine.
Yeah, I'm happy for the people.
I don't mind it that this way or full screen really.
And I think if you click on one of the slides, Catherine, it should make it big. I think that's how it works. She says, I have no idea. Does it?
The problem is it's on your PowerPoint actually, and it's not working very well. So I think.
Don't worry, so we can see it. Yeah,
it will go full screen.
Right, here we are. It's coming now.
Perfect. The joys of technology. I've got to say, it's great when it works. Okay. That's it. Perfect. So yeah, next slide, please. So I know that was just a load of it. Next slide, please. when this I put in because I just think we're all on a journey, and we're all, from my personal point of view, and when me and Linda and Catherine's been talking, it's all about basically we're trying to change, we're trying to grow, we're trying to change people's view on how they see dyslexia and neurodiversity, and not just us. So I just love this image, and I saw it on a presentation by somebody else, so I basically thought I'm copying that and putting it into mine because a picture says 1,000 words. So next slide, please. And this next slide is where the video is only 1 minute long, and hopefully this is what was setting us the challenge, because technology wasn't necessarily our friends. So Catherine's probably going to have to go out and put it on go onto Google to do it. We couldn't get the link to work and share, but I just think this, and this sort of, like Linda was saying earlier, it sort of sets the scene for the presentation, because it's, I don't know if it's just me or other people's had that, where from school years and throughout, it's very much everybody wants us to think like everybody else, and you penalise if you don't think like everybody else. And why are you thinking differently to me, particularly at school? And then when you're going to work with certain managers, you know, it's the negativity if you want to think differently. And as a dyslexic neurodivergent person, we do think differently. It's in our DNA. And this is a 1 minute video, and I just saw it recently, and I thought it says everything I wanted to say in 1 minute by all these other people who not me. So if it works, it'll be brilliant. If it doesn't work, well, that's technology for you. I'll give Catherine a few more minutes to, I can see the concentration. That's normally what my face looks like when I'm trying to deeply concentrate. So I still stop distracting her. But, so yeah, just let me know when you're ready now, or if it's.
Okay. Right, you're there. I think the best thing is if people try and share on the chat. So let's just put it on the chat. Okay, there's your film.
So does everybody want to click into it? We're going to do the countdown that what Linda suggested.
Yeah.
And
you okay, Becky?
Yeah.
And have a go at accessing it on the chat.
So what we'd like everybody to do is, if they could put their cursor onto the link, and then I'll say 1, 2, 3, and if we all click at the same time, we should all come out at the same time. Is that going to be okay with everyone?
That sounds perfect to me.
Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, so at the count of 3, I'm going to put my cursor on as well. 1, 2, 3.
I'm just grappling trying to open the PowerPoint in a different way, actually.
Okay, everyone, if we could go back in now.
Yeah, I'm back. Is everybody
Hi.
back? Everybody with us? Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, I'm going to say we get some yeses, so that's good. So hopefully everybody enjoyed that and got something out of it. So yeah, I'm killing some more. We're back, so that's great. I know Catherine's just sorting the presentation out, but yeah, hopefully everybody's taken something away from that. Like I said, we there was a lot of famous people. Hopefully people recognise some of them. Yeah, we're on the next slide already, so that that's great. So yeah, the next slide, I put this in because I got bought this book at Christmas, and I was a bit like, you buying me a book for Christmas? the dyslexic person here, and because I know a lot of dyslexic people do read a lot of books. I only read textbooks because they're shorter and easier for me to read, and I need it for education purposes. But an actual book, I prefer audio books or a film, to be honest. I'm not really a big book reader. But this, I just think, about being kinder to ourselves. There's not a lot of words, to be honest, and it's mainly pictures, but the pictures are so, and again, me and Linda and Catherine were talking about this, are so empowering that they take you on that journey. You look at that like how the horse's head is bent and leaning in. So it's not difficult to read. It's because it's mainly pictures. So even if you miss some words, you can still you can still understand what they're saying. But it's basically, I took it, my interpretation was, it's about being kind to yourself. Let's not beat yourselves up all the time, and and about friendship. And this group I see, and the advocacy and the Next Step program, so much, because I feel close, and I wouldn't say I'm an overly emotional person, but I feel close to everybody, which is weird because we've never met, but we're all on this journey together, and I do think that's what it's about. So I'm just put that on there so other people are aware of it and might get something out of it. So that I'm just recommending that as part of the journey, really. Next slide, please. So dyslexia and how I've changed my view set of my dyslexia and my neurodiversity personally. So when I was younger, and again, I think from the other groups and talks I've been on and our discussions, I think a lot of people felt like this. I used to feel very ashamed and embarrassed, and I really think that's education, to be honest. I think that's the education establishment what makes people feel like that, and period dramas. Right? I started on that when I was doing the practice, but I do think I'm blaming period dramas quite a lot, because when you're younger and when there was only 4 channels on TV, you also that, and there was a definite link between, if you could read and write, you were seen as intelligent. Right? The two things do not link, but we taught when we were at school and through the media and everything that them two things are connected, and they're not in any way, shape or form. And it took me a long time to sort of grow and learn that's not the case. And I remember being worried as when I was younger, that what am I going to do for a job? How am I going to be employable? Nobody's going to employ me. Look at the period dramas, right? And I was obsessed. You can tell what I grew up with. And the education system did nothing to help that. I mean, I know. Again, me and Linda and Catherine were talking about this with regards to there was a room at primary school, and I never got to go in this special room. It was a special room, whereas if you finished all your work, you could go, and you were rewarded for being smart and being able to go into this room and play with the toys. Never got to go in. I'm like 42, and that sticks with me. And I think the things that happen when you're younger do sort of shape your view as you're older. So, and I just learned from a young age that if I wanted to achieve, I just needed to work hard. That was my mindset. Work hard, be passionate, and just fight against them misconceptions. And then as I've got older and I've been on this journey, I've learned that actually, my view has changed a lot, and I'm fighting them misconceptions now, which leads quite nicely onto the next slide, please. And so, now at 42, I do see it as a gift. I don't see it as, there's difficulties and there's challenges, but everybody has them. And, it's now, I wouldn't be me, it's fundamentally, it's driven me, it's made me determined, it's actually helped me, because if things come easy, I mean, I've got friends that I regard as far more intelligent than me, but they don't push themselves because things come easy. And therefore there's just a different mindset, whereas I know it's going to take me longer. I know most times I'm going to be past midnight. I very rarely go to bed before midnight, because I'm working, I'm doing my work for work, I'm doing stuff for home stuff, and it just takes me longer. Everything takes me longer to do stuff, but I plow on. That's sort of a mentality. And also it's made me an excellent communicator, which I do business development now for a job. And it's perfect for me, really. I didn't know that's what I was going to do when I was younger, but because when I was younger and I couldn't read the signs and I couldn't read all the other information, I had to go and ask people. I had to talk to them, and therefore that's enhanced my communication skills. It's also, I believe, it's made me more humble, because, you know, and compassionate to other people, because everybody's got their own struggles. And I think if you understand that, it just makes you a better person, in my view. Next slide, please. I put this photo in because I'm sure several of you will have seen it before. It was on one of the other programs, I think on Next Step last year, and I borrowed it from there. And it's quite a famous image, I believe. I think Linda told me it was a famous one. So I just think this is, again, picture says 1,000 words. It's really powerful, because we should celebrate our differences, but also employers and people need to be aware of the differences and not expecting people to do the same thing. Like, I've had employers before now, the bad ones, the bad managers, where they've told me I've got to do the same as everybody else. We can't have put differences in place for you because of your dyslexia, or because, you know, we still need you. We understand your dyslexia, but I still need you to do the same as everybody else. That's not fair, and that picture just says it all. So I thought I'd chuck that in. Next slide, please. So yeah, school years, as I described earlier on, definitely not the best years of my life. I couldn't wait to leave, if I'm being honest, which I think probably a lot of dyslexic people would probably say the same thing. I was lucky that I got my diagnosis at school, which from these sessions I realized that a lot of people didn't get that diagnosis, but the teachers didn't understand. I mean, I left school in '95, so I was quite a long time ago now. Now I'm feeling old, but they just didn't understand. And I say, on career day, when my friends were getting really like uplifted by the teachers, and oh, you should be going to university, and they asked me, and I'm like very enthusiastic, I want to go to university. Check of the head, tuck to the side. No, it's not for people like you. You know, you need to do a YTS. That's for somebody like you. And I'm like, when you say somebody like me, I mean, that's just really negative, somebody like me. And again, I think we need to be fighting that change by side at the beginning, you know, and saying, well, no, you know, we can do stuff. And I know, again, for these sessions, that my story is not uncommon to a lot of other people's stories, which is a little bit scary, but also insightful. And next slide, please. Oh, we're cooking on gas now, Catherine. We're cooking on gas. So yeah, as you can see, I went to university. I'm the one on the right. Not that anybody would guess that I'm not the one on the right, but that's me, looking quite a bit younger. So I actually, and again, I'm going to mention a bit more on this because it came up, and I thought it was interesting when me and Catherine and Linda was talking, and said I should share a bit more about this with regards to. I'm from Sheffield, but I didn't go to Sheffield Uni. I actually went to the Durham Valley Business School, which is in Doncaster, and I picked that, but validated by Hull. So I got the red brick and my certificate. You wouldn't know I hadn't gone to Hull University, even though I've never stepped foot on their campus at all. So I've got the red brick university certificate, but I went to Durham Valley Business School in Doncaster, 25 miles from my mum. I actually lived in halls as well for the full experience. But it was the classes, the lecture theatre could only hold 100 people. It was an old manor house that they'd converted over, so they had chandeliers and a fireplace in one of the rooms, and it was just lovely. But it was a much more friendlier environment suited for somebody like me, because I'm better in smaller groups where I can discuss. And the lecturers had an open door policy, which I didn't realise till I did my CIM and I went to Leeds in an evening course, but that's not normal, because like I used to pop up and I'd have a cup of tea with the lecturers and I'd be sat there for a couple of hours, and that was perfect for me, and they really helped me. But you don't necessarily get that from a bigger one. So my advice is, if anybody's thinking of going to university, careful consideration to pick the one what is catered for you, and a good friend network. I made some great friends by being at university, and they helped me. And because I couldn't take notes or anything like that, I befriended the one with the best handwriting, who wrote great notes and was very methodical, and she would let me copy her notes every lesson I was there. And because of that, to be honest, because my dyslexia, otherwise we might not have even been friends, I'm now godparent to her kids. So, you know, it says a lot. So again, a gift. Next slide, please. thinking about it. There we go. Yeah. So this slide I'm putting in again from a conversation with Linda and Catherine. These are my new ones I added in. They asked me why I found university very different to school and what do I think the difference was. And I'd not queried that before. Up to that conversation, I'd never give it any consideration, and it's been on my mind since, lots. And I think the difference between university and school, regimented, you must follow process, and you must do things in a certain order. University wasn't like that. You're encouraged to think freely, to have your own thoughts and not necessarily follow the same thought pattern as the person who sat next to you. And my lecturers were great. They'd constantly chuck stuff in to create debate and discussion. And that was, I think, why I enjoyed university so much more. I just felt like I come into my own, and I felt I could breathe rather than feeling a bit more suffocated. I also, which I didn't think was unusual, but Linda was like, no, that is unusual. I was really fortunate that I got a person dedicated to me for 8 hours a week that I could do anything with. So she used to, I'd go into the class, she'd read me textbooks to me. She'd write down anything I wanted. I also got a photocopying card. I got a scanner. Not that I could ever really use the scanner, if I'm being honest, but I got a scanner. I got Dragon software. I got extra time for exams and a reader and writer. So I was really lucky on that. However, Dragon 20 odd years ago would barely dictate a thing. So all you would hear me was saying, delete that stupid machine and stuff. So it didn't necessarily work, whereas now Dragon is brilliant compared to what it was. But getting the support and making sure that you get this support and ask for it, because you don't necessarily know that's available. And I was the first, well, they told me I was the first dyslexic person gone through the business school, which I find bizarre because I'm sure I wasn't, but maybe people weren't open about it. Next slide, please. So on the spectrum of managers, I've had both different ends of the spectrum, which again, I know me, Linda and Catherine shared a lot of very similar experience. So I'm sensing us on the group will probably have the same as well. I've had some brilliant managers, and I didn't realize how good they was until I had the really bad managers. But the good managers all shared the same sort of traits, which again didn't really come to me until I started having the conversation with Catherine and Linda, that it was a case that, yeah, they were all entrepreneurs. From the looking back now, again, it didn't sit with me at the time. It just didn't click. They were probably dyslexic and neurodivergent brain, and they encouraged me. They actively encouraged me and let me run free with thoughts and ideas, because I did marketing and business development for the companies, and it went really well, and I made them lots of money, and everybody was happy till they sold the business. But then when the new managers come in, they had a completely different mindset. It was process and regimented, and you must, which I don't work well with that process. And then the bullying and everything else started. But it was a case that what we've discovered, and when me and Linda and Catherine were chatting, that they share the same traits. So the managers that tend to be quite bad tend to often lack confidence. Their ability isn't actually very good, and that's why they're projecting their negativity onto us, because they really secretly know we're good, but they're trying to put us down so we feel bad, and we need to fight against that as well. So I'm keen, fight for our rights, and give ourselves the credit we deserve, because good managers will bring the best out of us and will cause us to, I want to say flourish, but I can't pronounce the word. Basically grow like a flower, blossom. Blossom is the word I'm going to go with. So next slide, please, Catherine. So on here, and again, this came again from mine and Catherine's discussion. Well worth having a good partner and a good Catherine. You can't go wrong with either. So ensuring documentation, if you're starting to have any trouble with a bad manager, because it's great when you've got a good manager and everything's going well and you're not really questioning everything, but if you get a bad manager, and chances are in our careers we're all probably going to come across somebody, we'd be very lucky if everything's always rosy. So if you think that it's starting to go a little bit pear-shaped, or even if you're getting a whiff or you're not sure, evidence, getting things in writing is critical. I cannot emphasize that enough, that you need evidence evidence to write stuff down. Have it backed up. So, you know, print it off, email it to yourself, take a photo of it. You need to be able to document that down, because emails do have an habit of going missing if you're having trouble with your employee. However, Catherine did point out you can ask for the request of Freedom of Information Act, which I did not know was a thing that you could do. So that's worth everybody knowing. And also, obviously, the Equality Act, which, I'll be honest, until I had all the trouble, I wasn't really familiar with that. And now I'm very familiar, and obviously we talk about it, but I wasn't. Get advice. So there's loads of advice. You can get see a union if things are starting. I wasn't in a union for over 16 years. Then it went pear-shaped and I joined. Be honest, I had a bad experience with my union person. They were useless. But Linda had a brilliant experience with hers. So, you know, it's luck of the draw on who you get, but it's worth talking to them. Solicitors, you can get free, they are costly, but you can also get free advice if you call them up and have a chat, and some will give you 3 hours and some won't charge you even when you're just having a chat. I totally utilize that facility. Occupational health, good colleague, a good friend, Watford Forest Dyslexic Association. I use them all, you know. I would use them all again. I mean, I was really fortunate as a really brilliant solicitor, but also a good friend recommended to me that I needed to put something in writing. And traditionally, I hadn't done that. I normally just go and have a chat with somebody. And I'm like, oh no, just have a chat. And she's like, no, you must put it in writing. And that was that, having that one email made all the difference, because I'd got it in writing and they didn't have a leg to stand on. And then as I started on that journey, I contacted Watford Forest Dyslexic Association. I do believe I spoke to Catherine, and I remember, and it was a low point, I'll be honest. I phoned Catherine when I was feeling rubbish, absolutely and utterly rubbish. Everything was going pear-shaped, and I'm like, she's so nice, and I felt better, and I was like, oh, there is people and there's things you can do. So yeah, get advice, get help, get talking, record. Next slide, please.
You've got a hand up.
Fire away, Dee. I'm not good at noticing stuff like that, so thank you for pointing out. Fire away.
Hiya. What exactly were you putting in writing? Because you said you met somebody. So were you going away and putting down all the details of what you remembered the meeting to be about? Or what were you putting in writing that you could refer to later?
Right, well, on that particular one where I spoke to it was one of the colleagues in the office at our head of accountant, but she also used to do HR and everything. I'd known her for years. She was just a really smart woman, and she could see the change in the culture in work. And I'd been very open about my dyslexia at work, and everybody knew. But then when they were trying to force me out, they were saying I'd never told them. And I'd gone down, and they were trying to get me to do reports, about all these long reports, and then saying I weren't doing other stuff, but I couldn't, because they were forcing me to spend all this time doing the report with no Dragon software, no assistance whatsoever. I'd got no software, no person, no nothing, because I used to just send it to Lady Reports, who used to type it all down. So my old colleague and friend said to me, say to them you want you need a recording thing, and you'll pass it to her on a recording, like an handheld recorder and dictator system, and you'll do it that way. So I mentioned it to her, and then to my boss at the time, and my colleague said to me, put that in writing, say, just send an email after the meeting and say, as per our meeting, just to clarify, this is what I've said. And that's what I'd done. 6 months later, when they were trying to get me out, they were saying, oh, there's no evidence, you've never told us. They all categorically lied. It was a culture of lying, basically. And they were like, no, this is the first time you've ever mentioned it. I am like, everybody in the office knows I've never ever hidden it from anybody. Pretty much everybody in the office has spell checked some of my work at some point. They're like, no, there's nothing. And it was that one piece of paper that made all the difference, because I'd got it in writing, and they couldn't argue that, because I'd actually sent it to the boss. They did try saying, well, I should have made HR personally aware. I should have gone to HR and told them when the business was taken over. I'm like, that's not my responsibility. I've told my boss. I've put it in writing. So everything you said after that point is clearly a lie. and that's why it's critical. So that's what I said. So, but I only got that by talking to people, and basically the solicitor said, you've got bank to rights. Once you've got it in writing, you've got them bank to rights.
Okay,
Becky,
thanks for that.
Becky, I just want to also add from the conversations that we were having, that you very cleverly also got records of all the things that you did well.
Oh, yes, I did. Yes, well remembered. Yeah, I did. I documented everything that I'd done well. I got all my past performance, my PDR, the performance meetings, where because I'd worked for the company for 18 years, and up to takeover, I'd had constant positive performance reviews. I'd never had one negative, no disciplinary, not one blemish on my record, not one day off sick apart from when I had my emergency operation. So I took all that in as evidence. I also took in, because they were trying to say that I wasn't doing a good job. So again, I documented evidence. I spoke to the old MDs, and and they said, well, look how much money you've increased the turnover by. So again, more documents. So what they were saying, I'd got what they were actually saying and trying to have a go at me for. I had proof, contradictory evidence that what they're saying clearly wasn't fact. So yeah, well remembered, Linda. Well remembered. Thank you.
I just think it's really important, because sometimes our self-esteem can be really low, and we struggle a bit to recognize when we've achieved something. And some of us might have discussions with our managers where it can be quite a negative discourse, and it's really important when somebody's saying stuff to you like, you're not very good at this, this and this, to try and find a way of getting them to see that you can do stuff, that you are capable, and that actually it might be the systems that are around you that are de-skilling you. And I thought the way that you described that to me when we were talking was absolutely brilliant.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, but it is so true, because like you say, when stuff happens and you're having that negative, you start to feel low, and then you don't lift yourself up and think, oh, look at all the great things I've been, because they're pressuring you. They are literally changing your mood to bring you down. And then, like you say, you don't think about what you've done well. So yeah, make sure you have that. And again, it's having that good support network. So you have people and colleagues and good people around you to support you with that.
Yeah.
You've got another hand up, Becky. You've got James. I think that's right, James. Yes.
Yes. A couple of suggestions and comments. Yes, I can understand your situation completely. I am slightly older than you, so I went through uni a little bit earlier, and at the time the exam board would not accept dyslexia for special arrangements for A-level. That ended up on the desk of Emily Blanche, then the junior education minister. But yeah, with regards to the general thing of what you're saying, is what I'd say to anybody who, first of all, join a union before you need support from them, because if you try to join a union when you need support, they'll say, nah, you've not effectively you've not paid into the fund. You need to be of good standing for at least 6 months before you call upon them. If you've got troubles, a good thing to do is certainly don't necessarily email the issues to yourself at home, but just email them from yourself to yourself at work. Recordings of mood, any interaction with anybody, and yes, if you've got meetings with people, send a clarification to them afterwards. Also, if you need to effectively stop the clock, ask them for a formal workplace needs assessment. And that is language which, if it then goes to employment tribunal and they have refused to engage, they're on a very slippery one.
No, that's definitely right. And it's interesting you say about the occupational health assessment, because
no. Okay, careful. I did not mean occupational health assessment. I said workplace needs assessment. It's very important to use those 3 words. because it's not necessarily occupational health who understand dyslexia and all the rest of it. You are saying that you believe that you're dyslexic, autistic, or whatever, and you are wanting assessment by somebody who is understanding of those needs to see what is required for you in the workplace. You can partially get this out by doing a request into Access to Work. I had to coach my one employer through that. It took 18 months from me saying I wanted a workplace needs assessment. They got that confused with a display screen assessment, which then put me into meltdown in the workplace because they got too confused, and then they ran a disciplinary on me, even though their own occupational health department had suggested a workplace stress assessment. So that all got very messy. There are occupational and there are, unfortunately, there's certain occupational health providers who don't get it, and certain health and safety people who don't get it either. So it's very important to get appropriate assessments, either through the good offices of Catherine, or there are several other providers which you could suggest to your employer, which again, I mean, you could have, effectively, you can get one for free from the through the Access to Work assessment itself, but it's better to go with your own idea of a shopping list to Access to Work rather than let Access to Work dictate, because sometimes the Access to Work assessor is a bit of a generalist, and sometimes they could frankly do with a bit of a steer.
Thank you so much, James. That's really useful and helpful advice. Doreen is asking you, Becky, how did you manage to keep seeing what you were good at, even though you were exhausted and in low mood and when stressed with a bad manager? How did you manage to keep seeing what you were good at?
To be honest, it was hard. I'll be very honest. It was really, really hard because what you can see is what you get with me. I have got a lot of energy and a lot of things, but I noticed there was a definite change in my my shift, I like didn't feel my normal self. But brilliant support network, to be honest, because everybody else in the company, we got taken over, so they brought, it was like half the original staff of what I'd worked with for 18 years, and then all these new people where they'd brought them in, and these awful managers, where they were making people redundant and getting rid of people and basically trying to shove them out of the door. But we were friends, so I'd worked with these people for so long, so they was giving me loads of encouragement, and I think that in itself, they're like, you're good. They're only doing it because they're threatened by you, and they don't want to pay you. That's all it is. And I had that by my two old bosses who had retired, who I'd worked with all that time, and I went for a walk with them, and they was really upbeat, and it was having them people that I'd worked with for so long who knew me in a work environment, and not just like my friends out at work or my family who, in reality, you expect them to tell you that you're great, and to lift you up. But for having people you work with who can see you, and I'm client facing, so I go out and I see a lot of clients, and to be honest, I used to see a lot of directors and people really high up, and these people were really really nice to me, and I'm like, oh, that bless, they're just really lovely people. And my colleague said, they're not giving you that time. If you weren't good, these people wouldn't be giving you that time. And it was that level of encouragement that kept me going, and that where I'm thinking, I'll be damned if I'm letting this woman win. Right. So there was that mixture of the two where I am not letting her drive me out and make me feel like this. And then I'll be honest, I ended up going to doctors because I don't mind sharing, I started getting chest pains. I'd never had chest pains in my life and everything. I'm like, what's going off here? And I thought, and I phoned doctors, and I was really lucky because our doctors, you can't get in for love nor money. and like she says, oh, we've got no appointments. I'm like, oh no, that. So and I was feeling low, and I just said, I said, oh, I understand. It's not a problem. And then I just said, and I explained, I said, it's just I'm dyslexic. I'm having all this trouble with work. The boss is trying to get rid of me and everything. Turned out her son was dyslexic. She's like, you just wait on a minute, lovey. You just wait on. And she found me an appointment. I had to go at 8 o'clock at night, but she found me an appointment on a Friday night at 8 o'clock, and it turned out the doctor was dyslexic, who I was seeing. So it was quite a bizarre chain event, but he completely got it. He said it was clear what was happening to me and everything, and he was really encouraging as well. And it was having all these people who were supporting me all the way through that made the difference. And as I say, and that is actually when I reached out to I started looking into dyslexia to have a better understanding, and that's when I phoned and spoke to Catherine, because I thought I'd never really, which actually leads me quite well onto the open about my dyslexia, because I'll go on to the next couple of slides, then I'll come back because it sort of ties in and then it wraps it all up, and then we can have 3-4 for chats.
Had some very good input, thank you to James and Doreen. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, brilliant. Well, that's what I'm hoping we're going to get to next with that, because I have no idea what time it is, so I'm conscious that I don't want to not give everybody a chance to talk and stuff.
It's 7:45.
Right, in that case, I'll whizzle through the last couple of slides. So yeah, I've as I said, I understood my own dyslexia and coping mechanisms and strategies and stuff, and how I deal with day-to-day tasks. But I still feel that I'm on a journey, and I think we probably all feel like that. So I'm constantly learning. I've got a desire to learn more, and that's why I'm part of this, to be honest. And I've learned so much from the Next Step group, and as I say on here, I've learned loads by the speakers that we have in from the various different ones, from the monthly meetup, from the Next Step, from this advocacy group. But also I've learned so much more by people just sharing their own personal experiences, and you're like, oh, that, because you can relate. There's a lot of very similar stories. So yeah, next slide, please. Then I think I'm almost done. So yeah, now I'm on a big drive. So I've got full thing. Now I've learned so much. I'm on a big drive to try and get everybody else to know more and to be more open and to educate other people, because it's same with everything. If you talk about it and people understand, then it's got to be better rather than it hidden away. So since I started at work, I seem to be every time I do something, I'm the only one, and I'm like, it's not true. I'm not the only dyslexic out there. I mean, there's over 3,000 employers where I work, and apparently I'm the only one. Rubbish. So I did a dyslexic presentation to the EDI group. Then I got asked if I'd join a panel for discussion on dyslexia and neurodiversity and stuff. And then I had to write an article. I didn't have to. They asked me an article for the company magazine over my journey. And again, bless Catherine. I sent it over to her for input. She tweeted it for me, because I'll be honest, my sentences don't always flow and I'm a bit of a waffler. So yeah, she tidied that up for me to send that out. So I just feel it's a constant learning, constant journey. But the more I can learn and the more we can open up, I just think, and if it helps other people to discuss and be open, then we're all on a winner. And then my last slide I put in because, again, sorry, next slide, please. The last slide I put in because I just really like it, and I think it says it all. And again, I know it's quite a famous one, and I nabbed it off somebody else's probably about a year ago. So that's really it in a nutshell. So I hope it's been good. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope everybody's taken something away from it. I've probably said different things to what I've practiced every time, but hopefully it's been useful. And as I say, you get a copy of these slides afterwards as well. Open to the floor, because I say I've not really been checking the questions.
Okay, we've gone to the gallery now, Becky, for people to ask questions, and you're getting lots of claps.
Yay! Well, that's good. At least everybody's still with me and they're not asleep. That's always a good sign. So
okay, I think you've got Doreen has got her hand up and Dee has got her hand up.
Okie dokie. Doreen, do you want to go first? Because I mentioned you first, so do you want to fire away?
Hi. I think I'm a similar age to you. I did go to university after school, but I studied biology with geology, but then couldn't learn to drive because I just never lose where my car stops and everything else starts. So therefore, well, also I just don't have confidence like you appear to have. So I wasn't able to work in my field. Also, I had a 2-2, so, and from Paisley University rather than one of the big ones like Glasgow or Strathclyde or something. So I didn't have the confidence to do graduate job interviews. So I've always ended up in sort of, or well, until now, I'm a cleaner now, which is the best ever. But it's also to do with the fact that it's Glasgow Women's Library that I'm working in. But I've tried lots of clerical jobs and stuff. And I've always found myself at odds with all my colleagues as well, possibly because I've got some Asperger's as well. But I only just realised that recently. And I refuse when I'm in temp jobs to watch the clock and leave as soon as possible and everything. If I'm going to get paid to do work, then I'm going to do it to the best of my ability, which then makes people annoyed with me. But then when I try and say, oh, I'm dyslexic, I can't do this, and I get permission from the manager to do such and such, he doesn't then, or they don't then tell the rest of the staff. So I'm totally at odds with everyone. So nobody's ever going to stand up for me, but I think I'm all right. I'm just going to stay as a cleaner with my other opportunities, like being on the radio and tutoring people and stuff. I think I'm probably fulfilled now, but I just wanted not a question, it's just a well, my question to you is, were you able to go into a job that was totally to do with your degree?
It's interesting you say that, and actually what you've said, there's quite a few bits that I want to pick up on that, because the driving one was quite an interesting point, because it took me absolutely ages to learn to drive, and I always wanted to learn to drive because I thought it was important, but I struggled, and I had an awful driving instructor, and he said to me, some people aren't meant to drive. That's what he said to me. Some people are not meant to drive. I thought, I'm paying you to insult me. So I said to my mum, I'm not having him. I'm not having him anymore. And I changed driving instructors, and he was a brilliant guy. And it still took me a while, don't get me wrong, because like you, I couldn't get things to work, the coordination and stuff. It was just a real challenge. But I carried on, and the emergency stop, which I don't even know if they still do now, but the emergency stop, I couldn't get. It took me ages, and the guy, he kept hitting me with the highway code book, but it worked. And he said to me, I can't let you're damaging my car, I can't let you do it again. And it was just the way he explained it in a different way. So it might be worth considering having another go with a different instructor, or driving an automatic, because I know a few friends, they've said that where they can't find it to drive a normal car, but since most cars are going automatic now, it might be worth another go, just because I struggle like hell to learn to drive.
I think I can pretty much do the driving bit. It's the fear of, because I've actually seen someone get knocked down. It's the fear of being in charge of a lethal weapon that's the problem.
Oh, bless. But modern cars have got things that, well, I know the car I've got with work now, I feel it does some of its own stuff. If I get too close to things, it pulls me back across the lane if I get too close to the white line. So with time, cars might be that good that you might not need to worry about that either. So, and then the other thing you mentioned over the graduate jobs and going in, I had that same fear as you with regards to, I thought to myself, I got the degree, but then I was still thinking, what am I going to do for a job? Right, because I've got really low reading and writing. I can barely read and write anything. It is really, really bad. Like a kid, I couldn't read my friends, my goddaughters, text little kiddie book that you have to read them at night. And my friend's like, it's all right. She's 6. She'll be able to read it to you. I'm like, well, that's reassuring, So I was a bit worried, but I thought to myself, sod it, I'm going to go for the job. I'm going to sit there. I'm going to chat, and I'm going to see what happens. If I get it and they sack me, what's the worst can happen? I'll go for something else. I'm not going to let fear dictate. And that's why I went for it. And I had no idea if I were going to be sacked in a week, if I'm being honest. I had no idea. But I went for a smaller company that grew around me. So when I started, there was only 8 staff, and it was a family business. And then when I left and it got massive, there was 68 people. So that might be an option, something start small and go bigger.
James is asking if you've had an assessment for dyspraxia, Becky.
No, well, when I had my dyslexia assessment, I don't think any of these things was out back then in the, would it be the 90s? So I've never had any other assessment apart from for the dyslexia. However, I've always struggled to catch a ball. My coordination, my mum said it took me forever to learn to swim as well. We had to have exhalations. I'm like, great. And I'm very expressive with the hands, as you can tell. And I'm pretty much like this from the minute I get up to the minute I go to bed. I've just I remember once having stomach problems. I went to doctors and I explained to them, I'm not stressed, so don't give me antidepressants. And the doctor said to me, I can see that. She says, because if I could bottle your energy, she says I could make a fortune. So I am like this pretty much all the time. So, which I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing, but I'm pretty much the same.
Okay, you've got Dee, who is wanting to ask a question.
Hi again. I was just wondering, I mean, what happened to that company where you were? Did they, I mean, I'm assuming you won the tribunal, and then what happened to them? I mean, was the person who seemed like she was bullying, it sounded like you were being bullied by this one person, I don't know, your manager or somebody, or the senior managers, were they kind of, I mean, did somebody take them to task about it? Have they changed their processes now as a result? Kind of what was the result?
No, unfortunately, it was a culture from the top. So there was all in it together, unfortunately. Even the MD, who was her boss, and my boss, who was also dyslexic, and we discussed at length when we've been on car journeys about being dyslexic, he actually denied that he had no knowledge whatsoever, and he was my boss at one point. He had no knowledge whatsoever that I was dyslexic. It was the first he'd ever heard of it as well. So it was a complete cultural thing, and that was the difference. It was all the company that took it over was one particular mindset, and then the company that I'd started off with when I was 21, everybody else, we were all team players, and everybody just helped each other, and it was just nice to be nice, and everybody just, it was a bit like this group. It was just like a really nice environment, and I'd never known anything different, and then this company came in, and it just completely changed.
And you didn't, but you took them to court.
Yeah, I didn't. They thought they could get me out. I mean, I have to be a little bit careful because signing one of them agreements. But yeah. I will say, because I'm like Sonia, I'd still fight my case. What I did do, they thought they could get rid of me. They tried getting rid of me for poor performance and dragged me into these meetings and stuff. And then they offered me 1 month after being there. At that point, would have been nearly 20 years, or just over 20 years, I think it was. And they tried getting rid of me with 1 month. If you'll go now, we'll give you a month's salary. I think not. And I got told as well that if I didn't accept that, because I need to discuss it with my partner, I wasn't going to accept it. I just needed to get out of the meeting, to be honest, because it was so horrendous. And I'd been speaking to my other colleague and some other ones who we were friends from the old company, and they said, right, well, just take some time. And she said to me that I needed to either tell her, give her an answer the next day, and if I didn't tell her by lunchtime, otherwise it's a disciplinary hearing meeting, which I'll be having on Thursday. And that was it. So I spoke to my solicitor, said get something in writing, and she told me exactly how to word the email back to her. She said, so you've got it in writing, and then we've got something to work from. But she said she told me exactly how, and she gave me the spellings over the phone on how to write this email to my past employer. So it's about getting that right advice, because without it, I'd have been well and truly done over. But I thought, I'm not being a victim. I'm not giving in to these people. Absolutely not.
Well done, you. Well
thank
done.
you.
Okay, then we've got Adrian, and then we've got a couple more questions, because we've got some questions from Rose. Oh, and we've got a question from Robert. Adrian, if it's about universal presentations, Becky will take that, if you don't mind, Becky Morris.
I've put some things in the chat about that, but anyway, so I mean, what concerns me, looking from these things from afar, is that it seems to be the same old, you know, to such an extent. And, you know, they pass all these policies and things like that. And
And towards the end, do you remember?
Yeah. I mean, you know, the one thing where in the UK it's tougher than it is, say, in Portugal, is that where it ranks in terms of the free speech rankings for the press and everything like that. So you've got Norway at number 1, Sweden number 2, Portugal's at number 7.
What are you actually talking about, Adrian? What are you talking about?
Well, because there's a lot of you've got a rather relatively speaking censorious environment in the UK, and that's very apparent to me now.
About what?
Generally, I mean, for example, there's the LGBTQ kind of agenda that tends to be much more aggressively pushed. There's is
this a question for Becky about her workplace, about her talk?
Well, I mean, you know, it's just really, I'm wondering how we can actually, you know, change things so that people don't find this generation after generation after generation, and so that it actually, you know, oh yes, you know, okay, so you're going to need this, this, and this, and this, because until it's kind of really embedded, and you know, I don't know, what's it going to take? I mean, when are they going to start sending people to jail for discriminating in this way? You know, I kind of think that's the kind of thing that needs to happen, but it seems no sign of it. You know, I hate the concept of jail, but you know.
Okay, does anybody want to respond to that?
Can I just say something, Adrian? I think you're absolutely right in identifying that this goes on a generational level. But I think we can also chart improvements and changes. And some of the things that I'm going to be doing in October, which is sort of like Manager the Manager's Stroke 2, might be talking about, you know, employers becoming disability confident, and also we're talking about access to work and those sorts of things. But what we need, and what you've identified, is a cultural shift, a recognition and an acceptance of difference, rather than condemnation for that difference. And I think it's going to be baby steps, gradual, and it's about groups like this. And it's about when we interact. For example, I was talking to my bank today, and I took a couple of minutes out to say to the bank, I'm neurodiverse. I find endless passwords really, really difficult. And having that little snippet of a conversation with that person to educate them, to get to understand. Because we're 1 in 10, aren't we? We're the 1 in 10. And 9 out of 10 people don't even consider our needs, and it's very difficult, and it's not going to be instantaneous, and it's going to be really slow.
Well, with respect, I mean, because I actually had physical pain from when I had the conjunctivitis attack, combined with, you know, having told, and you know, but children were doing this, professors apart from this one, and doing things on a white background, etc. And so I actually, you know, when there was the feedback at the end of the thing, I actually said F off, you know, quite literally, you know, and then, so that triggered a disciplinary, which, however, what I then did is I then reported it to the anti-torture authorities in Portugal, and they wrote me, sent me a PDF, basically saying, well, you know, get back to us if you have any more problems, because it is torture and inhuman and degrading treatment to deliberately or negligently, and I found out it was very deliberate at the end of the course, inflict pain on someone and things like that. So, you know, I think the time for like baby steps and all, you know, awareness is over, to be put it blunt. And I think I am going to probably translate that PDF, and because the UK is part of the Council of Europe and torture and degrading treatment, things like that, because that's what's going on. I mean, there's still like procedural things and so on, but that's the kind of thing that you got to step right up a gear, and hit them with the hardest thing you can hit them with, and that is the hardest of the lot.
Okay, thank you very much, Adrian. There are lots of different ways of working with difficult situations in the workplace. One is diplomacy. Another one is trying to network and getting on with your colleagues, as Becky's been talking about. And another one, obviously, when it gets really hard, is the legal route.
Yes, but I think this is a very important precedent that I've actually had the official torture authority, anti-torture prevention authority, has actually supported me on this. So I think that is, that's the whole nother level.
Thank you, Adrian. That's really important to have said that, because, as you say, there are different levels here.
Yeah, but
Becky, did you want to respond? Becky Morris, did you want to respond at all?
Yeah, what we're finding, other Becky is it's key in respect to support, and I speak from first-hand experience of discrimination and indirect discrimination in the workplace, for which I, being very careful because I realise this is being recorded, I attempted to take my boss to court. And I think one of the key elements of this is a bit like a chess game. And it's about creating that situation for which you move your pieces carefully. Just a top tip in regards to this, it's worth keeping a time frame of when things happened and when, including, like Becky said, the positive stuff. But also it's worth, the key thing is as well, there's been some really good practice come out recently in respect to what does good practice look like for workplace inclusion. So you've got things like networks. So there's one called Be Completely You. If you, where is it? It's called Be Completely You, and it's about actually celebrating the authentic voice within the workplace. There's also organisations that support not only the person at the desk, so to speak, but also their family through examples of we're all in this together throughout the pandemic. And there's also things about creating strategies within the organisation, talking to people with the lived experience, but, and this is the but bit, engaging with leadership to say, what do you need? Do you need coaching? Because we can do business coaching to support leadership in respect to the inclusive workforce, because an inclusive workforce is able to react better to sudden change and transitional change. The pandemic has literally signified that. So what we're finding is that I don't want to quote Lord of the Rings, but it's like the pieces are set and the board is set and the pieces are moving. But what the tricky situation is, sometimes they don't move fast enough. Completely get that, been there myself. There's also a situation though in which some people are very stubborn in how they react to change. So it's about ensuring that there's mechanisms within that to increase the chance of, for want of a better phrase, smoking them out in respect to, and basically saying, this is not good enough to the leadership that don't want to change. So there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of resource now that wasn't there, certainly when I had problems at work. I won't go into all of them because I know that they can be triggering for some people. And I really appreciate Becky as well sharing sort of her experience, because the weirdest thing as well, when we share experiences, there's a lot of similarity in regards to what that is. And also just to let you know, Andrew's just put in the chat, I've heard of others receiving discrimination regarding dyspraxia too. Hello, yes, that was me. Though I do training now, and one of the things, and you guys know this probably already, but I always say to people, you know, one of the key elements and key traits of dyspraxia is that everybody's talented and exceptionally good looking, in which the first thing they say is, you've got dyspraxia. Thank you. How did you know? Like that. So, but it basically says to the audience, just you try it. Heard it all before. Just you try it, like that. And it creates a level playing field for people to be able to feel confident talking to you. But at the same time, it's about also saying, I'm empowered. Just you try it. That's it.
We have one last comment or question from Robert.
Okay, thanks a lot for that. I just want to ask the Becky who did the presentation. Like, how did she get to find out the career she wanted to do, and did she get any support to look for that career from an organisation, sort of like that? Sort of how did she decide what career she wanted to do after she did her degree, and what support did she get for looking for actually the work she was the job, the sort of the career she's in now? How did she get that support, really?
That is a really good question. It's actually very interesting because I had no idea what I actually wanted to do for a job. I knew I wanted a degree, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. And when I went to college, I had the option of either going to social care or like business, and I didn't know. So then I realized that I'm probably not, even though kids seem to love me, I don't think I'm very good with kids, and I couldn't work in old people's home because I'm not good with any sort of gore. So I decided that business was probably a safer option. So I did the business, and then when I went to uni, I did business, but you picked your criteria after the first or second year, I think it was. So I did business, and you could do business and HR, business and finance, or business and marketing. Now, I actually took extra subjects because I wasn't confident that I would necessarily pass everything. So to make sure, so I actually took extra subjects in HR and in marketing, and then I did an evening course at the same time for the CIM, the Chartered Institute of Marketing. So I'd give myself a bit of extra knowledge because it took me a bit longer, and I decided I went down the marketing route in the end because HR was going to be too much paperwork, and marketing I thought I'd be able to talk more. So and I didn't want to sack anybody. So that was the reason I went down. So that was it. That was the deciding factor. Less paperwork, don't want to sack somebody. Marketing, more talking, hopefully a bit more upbeat, and I'll get to meet more people. So yeah. I went. So yeah,
I like myself. I like chatting to people and sort of engaging and sort of having some kind of interaction and work well in the team, and sort of I like sort of I got quite sort of I'm very good at sort of really interested in how people are and sort of building a relationship with that, so building sort of some kind of friendship or some kind of sort of relationship with that person and all that sort of stuff, really. So I can understand why you went for that route, really.
Yeah, well, you sound very similar to me on that. So maybe you should go down that. If you're looking for a career change, I'd recommend down in that route. And even getting the job, I didn't know when I finished what job I'd actually be doing, because again, I did think it seemed a little bit quirky. I can't spell and read very well. How can I do all the marketing of that? I mean, thank goodness the social media bit wasn't out when I was there, because we were still on dial-up internet, which I think helped me, because I think I would have struggled with the more technology side. But I just applied for every job. I had a standard covering letter. I had a CV, and it was back when you used to get paper and you'd star and circle bits out, and it was just, look, I got interviewed and I got the job, and I'm still friends with the MD now 20 odd years in and everything. And he said the reason him and his brother employed me, he says, because we interviewed I think over 20 odd people, he says, and when you walked through the door, he said, because you could talk, we employed you for that. He says, you were just alive. He says, and I went for a job in construction. It was a construction industry job. And he said, we're all men. He says, and we wanted somebody, he says, and we needed somebody who would go out there and be quite lively and talk and engage. He says, and we won't do that. He says, and you just did it, which was interesting because at school I got asked to leave the room because I wouldn't stop talking and laughing, that I had to leave, and then I got a job because I talked. So yeah.
I think sometimes people get annoyed if you've got someone who wants to keep on asking questions or keep on talking. They don't understand why you want to talk so much and why you're so curious. They don't understand that, do they? Really?
No, and I think that's a dyslexia trick. I could be wrong on that, but I think because a lot of dyslexic people, we want to understand, we want to feel, and well, me personally, I want to feel and know and truly get to know somebody and really understand the ins and outs. So I do ask a lot of questions. I can't just accept something on face value. Somebody says something, I like to know a little bit more. And I do wonder if that's a dyslexic trait. I've no idea, so I can chuck that out to the floor. But I do think that's possibly the case.
I think it probably is, Becky. We've got a nice statement from Alexandra Thomas. If you want to say something, and we'll finish there, Alexandra, because it's very upbeat. Did you want to talk about what you've been doing?
No, it was just obviously I've had similar experience at work as well, and it's just putting grievances, sending statements off, 17 supporting documents, going through the union, all the meetings and stuff. And now I have to do all these presentations across like where I work to try and change like attitudes, because it's pretty poor where I work, and occupational health won't support the dyslexic person in the workplace. So the big managers are kind of trying to change attitudes there and stuff. So yeah.
So that's great. Really. You've got senior management supporting you, Alexandra.
To an extent, yes.
Well, that's a real win-win, isn't it? And that's a lovely good feel story to end with. Okay, I want to thank Becky for a fantastic talk. And you've got some great feedback in the chat, Becky. You know, people really applauding you for what you've done and achieved. And thank Linda for supporting Becky as well.
That's just what I was going to say. I was just going to say thank you very much to Linda, and thank you very much to Catherine, because you've both been like, you've got over and above to help me get to this stage. You really have, because it wouldn't be the presentation it is without both of your input. So very much appreciated.
I just want to say that I really enjoyed supporting you and listening to your discussion. It hasn't gone into the details about what could be done. For me, I've really enjoyed this personal experience and this personal journey, and really with an awareness that many of us will have been on that journey. So it's not really about the technical, it's about the emotional, and it's and you know, if people need to talk or whatever afterwards, then they need to possibly make some arrangements with Catherine to do that, because I'm looking at the chat and thinking, you know, there's been a lot going on. It is about how hard it is, but it's also about standing and fighting at the right time with the right support. Don't go in there if you haven't got the support, because you will struggle. It is a struggle. And it's a strategic one. You've got to really, really carefully gauge your situation and be super cautious about what you do, and check with people who know. So there's the Waltham Forest Dyslexia Association, there's the British Dyslexia. Many unions are helpful. My union was absolutely brilliant. I can say that when I was with Community. But I had to educate them. So there's also that you need to be thinking about. You are advocating for yourself, fighting for yourself. You're also advocating for others. And it's not, we can't do it overnight. It's not going to be instantaneous. But I've really enjoyed helping you, Becky. I've learned so much. It's been really, really interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think that's what's so great about this Advocates programme. People are working so well together. I'd like to thank Ellie Pierce for coming, who's one of our trustees. It's really nice to see you here, Ellie, who's one of the WFDA trustees, taking her time to be with us. So again, thanks so much.
Really interesting.
Everybody.
So thank you.
Did you enjoy it? Did you?
Yes, very much. Yeah,
Oh, it's
very interesting. Thank
so
you.
pleased to have you with us, Ellie. I just need to tell you about the next two events. On the 25th of May, we've got Atif Chowdhury, who is CEO of Diversity and Ability, who's going to be talking about his journey as a social entrepreneur. He's an award-winning social entrepreneur, and he now actually works overseas because of this work. And on the 15th of June, we've got, so that's 25th of May, 7 o'clock, Wednesday. Wednesday, the 15th of June, we've got Sadia Mirza, and this is part of the advocate programme this date. That's your next advocate talk. And she's going to be talking about mindfulness. And she has got a lot of expertise in this. And she is going to be supported by another advocate. And so it's again going to be a group teamwork. So this programme is ongoing all year. I want to thank Becky Morris for your input today. And I want to thank everybody for all your